When we are speaking, we are also hearing what others are saying. And this process of hearing and saying, chanting and hearing is actually very, very bona fide. It's very purifying. It purifies everything within and without. So thank you very much. The verse I was talking about earlier was Kaler doshe nije rajan astihi eko mahan guna kirtanad eva krishnasya yukta sangha param bhajet. So here it says that there are a lot of faults in this Kali Yuga, Kaler doshe nije rajan. There are a lot of faults, but it is only by the kirtanad eva krishnasya. It is only by the kirtan of Krishna says one will be able to deliver themselves from this material universe. So this is the verse I was referring to earlier, and the chanting actually is referring to the kirtan. So we'll now have the class, and before the class, if I may request Mother Kamalini, she's the one who's giving us the class today. Mother Kamalini has been practicing Krishna consciousness for over 50 years. She has dedicated her life, and she has talked about Krishna consciousness in many ways to different people. And one of the things that I always look forward to when she gives a class is her personal realization. The personal realization is actually something that you take Krishna conscious philosophy and you make it your own, and then there is transformation that happens within our own self. And so Mother Kamalini is a very, very elevated devotee of our congregation. And we are very fortunate to be able to hear from her today. So if I may request everybody with a loud Hari Bol, please welcome Mother Kamalini to give a class. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol!
We have a nice, small, intimate crowd today. I think, does everybody know why it's so small? Even though you saw hundreds of cars in the parking lot? So I think everybody knows, because yesterday was the annual Rath Yatra in New York City. And every year, we always, Aditya Narayan organizes the chartering of a bus to go there, and this year 2 full buses went. So Ratha Yatra, Ratha means cart, Yatra means festival, so the festival of the chariots or cart. So first I'll just sing a little bit, and we can hear more about the Lord of the universe, Lord Jagannath. It's almost like a morning program with the amount of devotees. Did I? Oh yes, still on. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Jai Jagannath Jai Jagannath Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajracharya Asasata Shishi Maharis Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajracharya Asasata Shishi Mad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki. Anantakoti Vaishnavinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki, Shri Shri Radha, Krishna Gopinath, Shamakunda, Radha Kunda, Girigavadan Ki, Yamuna Devi Ki, Ganga Devi Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Tulsi Devi Ki, Vrindavan Dham Ki, Mayapur Dham Ki, Sankirtan Yogya Ki, Gaur Premanandi, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Dhananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Gena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. The history of Lord Jagannath is thousands of years old. And since we have relatively very little time, I won't tell much about the appearance of Lord Jagannath, how he came to be manifest many thousands of years ago by King Indradyumna. But you know that Jaga means universe, and Nath means Lord. So he is the Lord of the universe. And I think you're all familiar with Lord Jagannath and how he looks. And why does he look like that? Because we see our beautiful Radha Golokananda, and this is how in most temples all over the world, that deities look like this, kind of a human-like form, very beautiful with kind of lotus eyes. And but Jagannath, he looks very different. Why is it? There's several reasons why he has very giant, round eyes that don't blink. But just to make a long story short, once upon a time when it was in Dwarka, and Rohini Devi, who of course lived in Vrindavan when Krishna and Balaram were young boys, the mother of Lord Balaram, the queens of Krishna and Dwarka, they wanted to know, could you tell us, we heard so many stories about Krishna when he was young and when he lived in Vrindavan, and do you think that you could tell us some of the pastimes that occurred there? And she said, yeah, sure, but these are very confidential, so we have to lock the door so others don't come in. And then they asked Subhadra, I believe, right, Subhadra, can you just keep guard of the door so that nobody comes to intrude, because these are confidential topics. So she was outside the door, but she had her ear to the door. She was listening, and she was so amazed. So one of the ecstatic symptoms that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also exhibited, where the limbs actually become contracted into the body, and then the eyes become very, very big, dilated. So Subhadra was listening, and she was amazed. And so, being the sister of Krishna and the sister of Balaram, so then Balaram came by and he said, what are you doing? And why do you look like that? And she said, I'm keeping guard here, so be quiet. So then he put his ear to the door, and then the same thing happened to him. And then in a little while, Krishna himself came, and when he also was listening to his own pastimes, and he became so ecstatic. So this is an ecstatic form of the Lord. And this deity of Jagannath, he resides in Orissa, in Jagannath Puri, and it's for thousands of years. This temple was built out of stones. It's a stone temple with big courtyard, and of course, everybody here is familiar with deity worship, right? So we all have no problem, and we totally appreciate the deity and develop a personal relationship with the deity. But of course, many people in the world, most people consider that it would be idolatry. You're worshiping an idol. But what is an idol? Idol, that comes from the Greek word, eidolon, which means image. So it's the image that may have nothing even to do with with like the original. It's just an image. It could be made up. It could be total, just imagination. Whereas the deity, that comes from the Latin word Deus. It means God. So we know the deity is non-different from God himself. So it is God, and it really takes to realize that here on the altar is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So through the cultivation of worship and meditation, one can come to realize that. But at Jagannath Puri, it is a whole, first of all, who here has been to Jagannath Puri? So you see, it's a whole city centered around the deity. I remember seeing even people on a rickshaw, if they're just driving by, they will just pay their pranams when they pass the temple. But the whole city is centered around the deity, and then of course they have very, very elaborate worship of the deity, like they have, especially for prasadam. Prasadam is also a manifestation. It's also the Lord in a form that's easily approachable. We can all approach prasadam, right? We know Lord Chaitanya taught that the most effective way for self-realization and love of God is chanting the holy name. And sometimes we may not experience a taste for the holy name, or we may get tired of chanting after a while. We may even fall asleep chanting, even though it's such a very potent form of devotional service. But very, very, very rarely does someone fall asleep honoring prasadam. So prasadam is something we all very much appreciate, a form of the Lord that we relish. I have seen very young children, babies sometimes fall asleep eating because they eat so much and then their face just falls into the plate. But it's pretty rare. We have to be really exhausted to fall asleep eating prasadam, honoring prasadam. So there, it's a big part of Lord Jagannath's worship. When this, let's see, I guess King Indradumna said that, okay, the deity, he has to have, his hands have to always be wet, Jagannath. That means that they cook 56 offerings a day, right? 56. And so that means as soon as he has boga after he eats, then his hands are washed, and then before they can dry, he has another offering. So they are cooking all day. There are 5,000 cooks, and not all at the same time. In one day, there's 1,000 cooks cooking, and only certain people, because there's a whole hierarchy, generally one has, especially in South India, where they're very much ritualistic, very much follow the rules and regulations. And even here, one has to be Brahmin initiated. But Lord Jagannath, he is so very merciful. We know Lord Chaitanya is very merciful, Patita Pavana. But Lord Jagannath is perhaps even more. He's very, very kind and merciful to the fallen people, because originally the deity, he was Nila Madhava, and Ashabara was his pujari. Ashabara is a pig herdsman, one who raises pigs for a living. So that's who took care of Nila Madhava, who later, you could say Lord Jagannath was manifest because of him. But so he allows anyone to worship him. But I found it very interesting, how much cooking goes on, and how they have multiple kitchens, and with big stoves, and it's like an acre of measurement how big their kitchen is, because within the kitchen there's different sections and different kitchens, and only men do all the deity worship and all of the all of the puja, all of the cooking, and then there'll be a head cook, and then assistant cook, and then an assistant to the assistant cook, and then they have a whole separate kitchen where they cook for the masses, every day feeding at least 10,000 people for prasadam distribution. They sell prasadam, and then on festival days, 25,000 people. So they're always cooking, and imagine how hot it is. It's very hot in India right now, and because many of our devotees are just now returning from Rath Yatra in New York, but they just had, for Rath Yatra 2 weeks prior, there's Snan Yatra, where the deities are bathed. So they just had it on Thursday at Jagannath Puri. So in about 10 days, they'll have their giant Rath Yatra with how many people? Millions of people. It's a holiday, nobody has to work except, I guess, the pujaris and also the police, yeah, and the cooks. But there's so much different service, and like as soon as a boy is a little grown up, 10 years old or so, his father starts training him how you're going to be engaging in this service when you're old enough. And so just a little bit, of course, there's managers. It's a lot to manage the Rath Yatra and manage what goes on. And then it wasn't until 1952, that's when the government became involved, and the temple is managed now by the government, but of course they're very favorable, and they take it as a great responsibility, but the king and the governor, they're all involved. So there has to be, there's a king and then someone who takes care of, if the king's not there, and of course a treasurer for all of the donations that come, somebody assigned, so everyone has their service. One other thing, if you are engaged in service there on the regular roster, everyone gets free prasadam every day. So almost everybody, anyone engaged in any part of the worship, they take prasadam there from the Jagannath temple. There's a person that opens the temple every day and a person that locks it every night. And there's somebody that, how the king sweeps the road, and then supplying the cloth. There's in charge of the seamstress. The deities only wear silk and cotton, never any synthetic and never any artificial flowers. So there's gardeners to grow the flowers, maintain the flowers, tulsi pujaris, and supplying milk, supplying water. They have the king, originally they built a special well for the deities bathing, and every day the deities are bathed, and because the deities wood, if you put too much water on the wood will begin to rot. So they hold a mirror, a silver framed mirror, and they bathe the deity through the mirror. And of course, being wood, they have what's called the Nava Kalevaram. Every 12 years, the deity is replaced. And so is a special forest where they, first of all, beginning, and every year for Rath Yatra, a new cart is built. So that's like hundreds of men that do that. They have to go and cut down the tree, certain trees in a certain forest. And then for the deities, what happens is 3 of the pujaris, I guess they're voted somehow, so they go and sleep. Like in the pastimes of Jagannath, there's a lot of communication through dreams. So they all go and sleep right in the temple room, and then it's revealed to them where to find the particular trees that will be used for the wood for Lord Jagannath. You know, there has to be like Balaram has to be a kind of whitish tree, and then different characteristics of each tree. So that goes on too. So one thing is, it's extremely elaborate worship. Now, like that, how the Lord appears in prasadam, and how did that come to be that there's mass prasadam distribution? Well, that came to be because one day, Narada Muni, he goes every day to visit Lakshmi Devi, just to pay his obeisances to her and ask if there's any service he can render for her. So one day he went and he said, I have a favor to ask of you. And so what I would like is, I would like some prasadam. So this is Lakshmi Devi. I would like some of prasadam of your husband, Lord Vishnu. And she said, oh no. Do you have a second wish? No, that's all I want. I just want his prasadam. And she said, just yesterday, he told me, don't ever give anybody my prasadam. You know, don't ever take remnants from my plate for anybody. So she's like, I don't know what to do, but I'll try to work something out. He said, yes, please try really hard to work. You've heard this before, right, this story? So try to work something out. So then she goes, you know, she's massaging Lord Vishnu's lotus feet, and he sees like something's bothering her, you know, like she's not talking, but she's not her usual jolly self. And then again, the next morning, he's like, what's going on? Like, are you sad or upset about something? What happened? And then she tells him, you know, Narada Muni asked me for prasadam, but you told me I can't give anybody your remnants. And so he goes, well, this is what you can do. While I'm taking prasadam, if I look away, then you can grab my plate. So even though the Lord sees everything, but you could take my plate. So that way you're fulfilling both of our wishes. So sure enough, that day, Garuda came and he called, my Lord, and sure enough, he turned to look at Garuda. Lakshmi Devi grabbed the plate, and then she took it, and Narada got a whole plate of prasadam. So he was really ecstatic, so much that we kind of take for granted prasadam, but devotees who realize it's Krishna, they experience great ecstasy. So he got the prasadam. He was very happy. He started dancing, and then he went, he was going all over, and he went to Kailash. And Lord Shiva, he said, wow, what's going on? Why are you so ecstatic? He said, because I got the prasadam of Lord Vishnu. You did? Well, what about me? Like, I'm your friend. Didn't you bring me any prasadam? Oh, sorry, I didn't even think of you. I was just so happy having that prasadam. Well, that's not very nice. You must have a little bit. Let me see your hands. No, I already washed my hands. Let me see your fingertips. No prasadam. Oh, there's a little piece of a grain of rice underneath the fingernail. Oh, there's just a little. Oh, that's good. That's all I need. I'll take that. So he gives Lord Shiva that little piece of rice, not even a whole grain of rice, and he pops it in his mouth, and he becomes ecstatic. And Lord Shiva starts dancing and dancing, but you know, he does the dance of destruction at the and so they're like, please, you know, calm down. It's his wife comes, Parvati. What's going on? What's going on? Why are you dancing? You have to stop. You're going to destroy everything. The oceans are starting the waves are coming big and things are trembling. So stop, what is it? And he said, I got Lord Vishnu's prasadam. And she's like, well, where's my prasadam? And he said, it was only a half a grain of rice. I didn't. And she goes, what do you mean? And you didn't even save a half a grain of rice can be still broken in two. And you could have at least given me a tiny particle. That's really not fair. And he said, maybe you're not qualified. Not qualified? What are you talking about? I worship the Lord just as you do. I engage in the same kind of meditation. How can you say I'm not qualified? And she was so heated up and angry that Lord Vishnu himself came and he said, what is it? Why are you so upset? And she told them that they had prasadam. Narada and my husband both had prasadam, and I didn't get any prasadam. And he goes, well, don't worry. I'm going to give you a whole plate of prasadam. Okay, I'm going to give you a whole plate. She's like, a whole plate? But what about my children? Right? She has 4 children, but since her daughters were already married, so 2 sons. What about my children? Okay, I'll give you 3 plates. One for you, one for Ganesh, one for Kartikeya. What do you mean? I am the mother, right? Bimala. I am Parvati. I am the mother of all the living entities in the material world. I want prasadam for all of my children, not just 2 children, all of my children. And he said, oh, okay. So that's why in the temple of Jagannath, inside, how many have been inside the temple of Jagannath at Jagannath Puri? 2, 3. So, of course, we're not allowed to go in, white-skinned people, but they say within the temple, right, there's a little temple for Bimala. So everything, all the prasadam is offered to Bimala, who's Parvati. It's offered to her after it's offered to the Lord, and then it becomes distributed. Like we say in Jagannath Puri, everyone gets prasadam. And they have they cook 9 pots at a time, a big one and then a flat one on top, and then in the corners, and it's like tiered up, like those tiered pots in the clay pots. That's another job. Somebody makes those pots and cleans them, and so we have gotten Jagannath Prasad. It stays hot in those pots for so long. You know how everywhere else we offer the deities, we have big pots, but we take one bowl, we put it in a bowl, we give them a plate. But at Jagannath Puri, they bring the whole pot. So the deities have, the pujari will, he makes like a rangoli kind of for each, for each of the pots that are going to come. And then they have to take several men to carry them, big pots, and they put the whole big pots in front of the deity, in front of Lord Jagannath. So it's very big, but it stays hot for many hours, like a thermos, those clay pots. And because they're cooked in clay pots, too, it retains the heat. So this is one of the wonderful manifestations of the Lord, his prasadam. Also, as I mentioned about his very big eyes, so his eyes, he has so much love and affection for his devotees. He doesn't want to miss like seeing them even for a second, because as we know, the gopis, they condemned Lord Brahma. How is it that our eyes blink and Krishna is right in front of us, and you made eyes that blink so that for that fraction of a second we cannot see beautiful Krishna? How can you be so foolish? I thought Brahma is like supposed to be the most intelligent. Well, that was not very intelligent. And then when Krishna's not here, then, we don't care. But when he's in front of us, we want to see him totally. So So now, Lord Jagannath, he also, like he wants to see, and big, his eyes are like magnifying glasses. And so this is one of the special benedictions as well, Lord Jagannath's eyes. And he's always watching, and they say, I've heard that he hears our prayers, like we sang in the beginning, Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhava Tume, praying for him to be visible before us. But especially at Rath Yatra, he's very happy because he's going to Vrindavan. He's in a very happy mood. So when your children, and when you were children, you remember if you want to ask your parents for something that is not easily granted, you have to wait till they're in a good mood. So if they're not, then you don't bother asking. So you wait. I used to leave notes I had 4 brothers, but I would leave a note on the mailbox in an apartment if my mother was in a good mood or not. So they would know they're going to get in trouble if she's not. So the same Lord Jagannath, we know that he, he's so happy. He's always smiling, and he will easily, if we pray to him, he will grant our wishes, our spiritual desires, and so we can take advantage of his great magnanimity. He's very, very kind to his devotees, and you see, like at Jagannath Puri, one day, everyone's allowed, it's like we can't go in the temple to have darshan of Jagannath, and but you know what? That's why Lord Jagannath comes out. It's like if you're sick, pretty sick, you go to the doctor, right? And here in America, I don't think it's too common, but in India, very common, that if you're too sick, you can hardly even walk, then the doctor will come to your house, right? And you have to pay a little more, 20 rupees, no, little more, and he'll come to your house. So Lord Jagannath, he's so kind that if we can't go in to see him, he will come out. So he comes out of the temple so that everybody can see him and everybody can have his darshan. And we see wow, what a big crowd at Rath Yatra there at Jagannath Puri. So that's his kindness, because even coming out, that's when the doctor will come to you when you don't even know how sick you are. So most people don't even know they're in Maya, don't even know that they're not the body, that they're spirit, soul. So he will come and he will spark that. So one thing, there's a certain date of Rath Yatra every year, it's mentioned in here, a certain time. Excuse me. And so, our Srila Prabhupada, look how merciful that we know how Malati, she was at an import store, we have those here. What do you call Pier 1 imports or something? And there was a bin of these little dolls, and she actually shoplifted one of Jagannath, and she took him to Srila Prabhupada in San Francisco. So this is the first deities in ISKCON, right? Are Jagannath. And she took and said, Srila Prabhupada, what is this? Or they called him Swamiji. And she put this little deity, she put him on his desk, put him on Prabhupada's desk. And he said, and he did pranams, and he told, that's Lord Jagannath. And were there any more dolls like that? Yeah, there were two other bins, a little yellow one and a white one. Go and get them. Go get the others. So she went and got, and then Prabhupada, he started telling the devotees a whole story of Jagannath and King Indradyumna, And then he said, does anybody here know how to carve? And Sham Sundar said, yes, I know how. And he said, okay, I need you to make the same little deities as these, out of 3 feet tall. Get wood that's 3 feet tall. So Sham Sundar did, and he started carving. And at one point, he had his pack of cigarettes on top of Baladev's head there while he's carving. And Prabhupada said, wow, just such a small thing keeping you between you and Krishna, keeping you from Krishna, you know. Then, of course, he gave up smoking. But how Lord Jagannath, even in Puri, there's one day, right, out of the year where anybody can go and hug. Lord Jagannath comes out, right? Isn't it? Does he come out for that, or it's in the temple? One day where anyone can go up and hug him. So, you know, it's kind of ironic, you know, how they say that only Hindus are allowed, but, you know, so many of these Hindus could be totally engaging in all kinds of sinful activity, and of course eating meat and other illicit activities, and not at all pure in character, but just because they're born in so-called Hindu families, or even if they're not, you know, if they look, does that means like Muslims are they not allowed in the temple, Muslims? Do you know? They're not. So they could easily disguise themselves, though, right? Because just changed, put on a sari. And so, but still, there's this, and they say at that time, that's when you make your request to Lord Jagannath, when you go embrace him and ask him for a benediction, because he's so very, very kind in that way, and he'll grant your wish. Like one devotee for many years, he his wife couldn't conceive a child, and then he prayed to Lord Jagannath, and he was able to in that year have a child. So Lord Jagannath, he has many different pastimes, and one thing he likes to do, it's called Garbha Gunjani. He likes to break our pride. So there was one time, there was this very, very proud, wealthy man, a merchant named Jagat Singh, and one day he came and he gave the pujari, he didn't give it yet, he said, I would like to give 100,000 rupees, because you say that he's Jagannath, the Lord of the universe, so he must have a lot of expenses, right? A lot of overhead. And so, yeah, I'd like to give 100,000 rupees. Now, that was a lot of money. This is like many hundreds of years ago. So he said, but there's one stipulation that it's all. Sorry, it has to be spent in one day. So the pujari said, one day, I mean, Krishna likes, he said, offer me a leaf and flower, or fruit or water. He doesn't require very much for his worship, but he said, no, if you can't spend it in one day, then I will take it back. So they said, all right, well, we'll ask Lord Jagannath what he would like. So there's a lot, like I say, a lot of dreams where the Lord comes to them and reciprocates. Even Srila Prabhupada said that even like our pujaris, if there's like, say, an attack, they will have dreams to move the deities. Otherwise, we never move the deities. And little side note, Alanath ex-Swami, I think, he had this dream that their temple was going to be attacked. This was in Argentina, and and he called his GBC. He said, I think I have to move the Didis. And they said, forget it. The GBC said, forget it. That's just your mind. We don't take dreams so seriously. And he said, okay. And then again, he had the dream. And so he called the GBC again, and he said, forget it. Don't even think of it. Then the third time he called and said, I'm on a plane with the Didis, and you can pick us up at this time. And sure enough, the temple was attacked, and the Didis, he had taken the Didis, but all of Prabhupada's books, they took all the books and made a big bonfire, burned all the books, destroyed the temple. So Krishna can, like that, with his servants, he can reveal, how to increase the service. I can't see the clock so well. Is it 5:45? Oh, okay. So anyway, this, the Pujari, Lord Jagannath came to him and he said, okay, tell him this is what I want, because he's so puffed up and thinking. He said, I want everyone to know that I gave 100,000 rupees. And so Lord Jagannath said, tell him that I want a betel, pan. It's a leaf of betel tree, right? And maybe some of you, before you were devotees, you tried pan. I know it's all over India, wrapped up in a leaf, and it makes terrible mess everywhere and stains your teeth. But I asked Google, and there's, according to the location, it's made different ways, and different spices are in it, and it rolls up. And you don't eat it, you just chew it and spit it out. But he said, I just want a betel leaf. Within it, though, I don't want the usual spices and all that. There is a certain elephant that has a jewel, like 1 out of 1,000 elephants has a jewel embedded in its forehead. So I want my pan inside to be made out of crushed up. I want that jewel to be made into a paste, and that's what I want. So he told, so the Pujari told this man, that's what Lord Jagannath wants. And he's like, what? Where am I going to get the jewel from an elephant's head? How am I going to find? There's like 1,000, you have to go, what are we going to do? Kill 1,000 elephants? And besides that jewel costs way more than 100,000 rupees. So I can't afford that. I said I can only give 100,000, and that would cost way more. And he said, nope, but that's what he wants. So then he realized, that I'm so puffed up that I thought I could, buy the Lord, that by my great wealth. So he went and surrendered to Krishna, to Lord Jagannath, and told him that he couldn't do it. And then he said, okay, just take the 100,000 and do with it as you wish, for their regular worship of the Lord. And also, another one, this great Pandit from Kashmir, his name was Udaranacharya, and he didn't have faith. He heard that if one has darshan of Lord Jagannath, one will get liberated. That's what he heard. But he didn't really believe it. So he thought, I'm going to go test it. I'm going to go get darshan, see if I get liberated. And so he went, and he got all ready. He in the morning, he took bath and everything, chanted his Gayatri. He was very proud, and he went, and the temple doors were locked, and even the pujaris couldn't get in. They were locked, even though they have a key. Lord Jagannath had locked the door from inside, and so all day they were locked, and then the next day they also were locked. And then he's like, what's going on? And so Lord Jagannath, he told the pujari, this puffed up scholar here, I am not opening the doors. He is not going to get darshan because he has no faith in darshan. So tell him nobody's going to have darshan. The temple's staying locked until he leaves. He has to leave Jagannath Puri. So they kicked him out, told him that you have to go. But then he just became so humbled. He bowed down and was crying and begged Lord Jagannath for forgiveness. And then he did finally get darshan. But the thing is, Lord Jagannath, like here, our deities, except Saturday, Sunday, they stay up all day because a lot of guests come, a lot of visitors. But every day they take rest right after lunch, after the artik at 12:30. They so-called take rest. They do whatever they want, really, but we tell them, just like your babies, tell them you have to take a nap, but they don't always take a nap, even if they stay in their room. But then, and then at night we close, like here, 7:30, they close the curtains, and until 4 o'clock, a quarter to 4, 3:45, the deities are woken. But Jagannath, he doesn't sleep. Plus, he doesn't have eyelids, so his eyes don't close. They're always open. And do you know, the temple closes 2 hours a day, probably for cleaning and maintenance. But you can go there at midnight or 1 in the morning or any time. The temple's open. And you know why they say? Because the demigods come in the middle of the night after midnight. That's when the demigods come for darshan. And can you imagine Lord Brahma standing in line, with the rest of the devotees? So they have like a private time for darshan and all. And so there is so much, and especially the history of how Lord Jagannath came to be, how King Indradyumna, how the Shabara king, Vishvasu, right, how he worshipped the deity, and that's a whole history. But anybody have any comments or questions about Lord Jagannath? Has anyone ever been to New York Rath Yatra before? Yeah. I'm from New York, too. I was at the first big Rath Yatra when Prabhupada was there in 1976, the first Fifth Avenue one. Before that, we had Rath Yatra in Central Park. We just had tiny Jagannath. Later on, the deities were carved later when they were in Manhattan Temple. But so we can all pray to Lord Jagannath, and there's many different prayers and different astakams that one can chant to Lord Jagannath and glorify him. So anybody have any other favorite, any other pastimes of Lord Jagannath? Or your own experiences of taking shelter of him, because that's what we always need, shelter, because this is the age of distraction. So much to take us away from the Lord. So we can pray for that strength. Yes, Prabhu? Oh, so we know it always rains on Rath Yatra Day, and so the farmers are very happy because that's very good for their crops. Like, so if we're ever complaining about the rain, know that the farmers are happy and all the trees and plants are happy, even if you're not. But yeah, and now just see, because of Srila Prabhupada, there's Rath Yatra in all of the major cities of the world. Like, it used to be in the major cities, now, like, even in smaller, right? Like in India, how many Rath Yatras do they have? And this book, which is rather old, it shows, like, all the Rath Yatras all over in Italy, Washington, D.C., in San Francisco. The first one in San Francisco, after Prabhupada told Shyam Sundar to carve them, then they had 1,000 people. This is 1,000 hippies. And then Prabhupada, that's when he was ill, and he went to Stimson Beach to recuperate. And they actually had Prabhupada was looking out the window in San Francisco. We lived in the same apartment that Prabhupada lived in previously. And he saw a flatbed truck. And he said, since they didn't have a cart, we can use a truck like that. So that was their first Rath Yatra, on a flatbed truck. And Jagannath was facing, and then Baladev, Subhadra on the sides. And then they drove to where Prabhupada was staying with Kirtanananda and Gaur Sundar and Govinda Dasi. And they heard the kartals, and Prabhupada was very happy. But of course, all over Los Angeles and Mumbai, London, New York, all over the world, Rath Yatra, the Lord is coming out to them. And just this year, there was a whole, because the different Panjas, the priest of the Jagannath Puri temple, they said it has to be on this day. I mean, it's stated in the scriptures what day Rath Yatra is, the certain tithi. But we have Rath Yatra, like so many different days. And they said, this is wrong. You can't have Rath Yatra. It has to be on that day. So we know we don't have that many carts. Many, like Jagat Purush Prabhu, he drives the carts to different cities, and other ones too. Several cities use the same cart, or even the same, like the deities in New York, they live in, do they still live in Baltimore? Or New Jersey, because, yes, they're not even from New York. They just come there. But we see that they had a whole debate, and some of our ISKCON scholars had to go and debate with them, and I haven't heard the result, but whatever it is, we're having Rath Yatra on any different day, because the Lord's not like shackled to that particular time. He's available for anyone, anytime, if we just take advantage of him. Okay? All right, so thank you all very much, and so all glories to Lord Jagannath. Jai. Vanchkalpa Sivita. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mother Kamili. Such a sweet class on Lord Jagannath. And I think of Lord Jagannath, I just think of him as a small baby, and he's just having his pastimes as a small child. And what to speak of the prasadam, when he actually gives prasadam to the whole, all the universes are completely satisfied. So wonderful pastimes that you shared. Thank you so much. Let's all give a big loud Hari Bol and thank Mother Kamaldini for such a wonderful, blissful class. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! We will actually be having a Rath Yatra here in our temple coming up very soon. Yeah. There's going to be one coming up very soon. So you'll see, just watch out for the announcements, emails, WhatsApp groups, and you'll get to know more about that. We also have, on the long weekend, a retreat coming up. Some of you may have registered for that. If you have not, you can just go to our websites and register. We have His Grace Amarendra Prabhu and Gaurang Darshan Prabhu. His Grace Gaurang Darshan Prabhu. He's coming in from India. And he is a recognized expert in Srimad Bhagavatam and gives absolute, between the two of them, they give absolute most nectarian Srimad Bhagavatam classes. So we'll have that. We'll have a whole program over the long weekend. So please do sign up for that retreat if you haven't already. We'll now have prasadam downstairs, and so feel free to walk downstairs and you can test, form a line. There'll be some serve out. I think they have already left, so they've already headed downstairs. So that'll be our program for now. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mother Queen. Hare Krishna.